Kemi Badenoch, so good to see you. Strange question perhaps to start, but do you notice the ethnicity of people when you watch adverts?
Yes, I do. Not always, not often, but occasionally.
But feeling that you've been driven mad, which is what Sarah Pochin said, is that racist?
Well, I found her comments quite shocking. I can't imagine if my children heard that. And it's not a surprise that she's withdrawn her comments because she knew that they were wrong.
But so many people have said they're just straightforwardly racist. What do you think?
Well, I think that Reform wants us to be talking about them. And quite frankly, and I say this as a black person, I'm tired of having to argue about whether or not what Reform is doing fits into a particular category. I'm the leader of the Conservative Party. I want to talk about what Conservatives are doing, not what Reform is doing. We're talking about fixing the country. They're talking about TV adverts, not serious.
OK, one very quick final question on this. Had one of your MPs said this, would you withdraw the whip? Would you throw them out?
Well, it depends on exactly what they had said. But again, we spend quite a lot of time arguing the toss on these things. Sure. We saw it with the Grooming Gangs Inquiry, and people actually missed the elephant in the room, which was the girls who were struggling. So I tend to, just focus on the key issues.
We might come back to grooming gangs, you never know. But first, we're going to focus a little bit on immigration.
Just after Keir Starmer warned that Britain risked becoming an island of strangers as he announced his immigration plan, the Conservatives published their own bill, with little impact at the time. This is now getting more scrutiny after Tory MP Katie Lamb told the show last week that some people who were here legally would have to be deported. So what does the bill say? Well, one of the changes is to indefinite leave to remain, also known as ILR, which allows people to live, work and study in the UK for as long as they like. But the Tory bill says that if they're a criminal, receive what is known as social protection, or have an annual income of less than £38,700, they face being stripped of the right to be here, retrospectively. Who would this actually affect? There's no data on the incomes of people on ILR, but we do know that about 70% of the UK population make less than the 38,700 threshold. Those receiving social protection includes people who've received benefits such as universal credit, and we know that the nationwide figure for that is 34% of people in work. The bill also suggests it would include anybody on ILR who gets the state pension, and across the UK, that's 98% of pensioners. So how many people could the Tory deportation plans impact? We spoke to the Migration Observatory at Oxford University, who said that as the bill stands, it would likely affect the majority of those who are on indefinite leave to remain. They note, though, that while the Tory plan doesn't exempt EU citizens on the settlement scheme, they do already have protections which mean they should be able to stay regardless. Even without those EU citizens, we're still talking about hundreds of thousands of people. Robert.
So, Kemi, are we talking about a Tory government deporting hundreds of thousands? And indeed, your bill doesn't make a distinction between EU migrants and migrants from the rest of the world. And on, Migration Observatory's figures, we could be talking about a couple of million people being unable to stay here under your plan. So what are the facts?
So the facts are, first of all, I'm thrilled that we're talking about this because we put these policies out first as amendments on a bill in February and then again in that package in May. Nobody wanted to talk about them, and now we're talking about them after quite a lot of it has been superseded by us leaving the ECHR, the policy which I announced in in the beginning of October at our party conference. So,
but hang on, how does the ECHR decision have an impact on this bill? Because this bill is still there.
Significantly, because one of the things which we were trying to do was deal with the large number of people who came in from 2021 who would become eligible...
So this is the so-called Boris bulge?
Who would become eligible for ILR next year. So there was a Labour bill, and we put through amendments to try and deal with the situation as of this year. Things have changed. One of the things that we wanted to do was take benefits off foreign nationals. If you're a foreign national, you should not be receiving benefits. The ECHR does not allow us to do that. By leaving the ECHR, it means that we can remove benefits from people who who are not British citizens, and that changes quite a lot of the problems that we were trying to solve.
So you're basically saying that this... Well, are you going to withdraw this bill?
Well, we don't need to. We're not the government. You know, we're the opposition.
But it's no longer... What you're saying is this bill is not policy anymore because, and I just want to be clear that I understand it, on the bill that Pippa's just shown us, what would happen is if you were in receipt of benefits, you'd be forced out of the country. You're saying instead of that, you will say to these migrants who have benefits, they can't have them anymore.
So let me try and make this as simple as possible.
Please.
We need to lower immigration, and we need to do everything we can to do so. But what we are seeing right now is quite a lot of people who are in our country not able to contribute. They're actually dependents. They need from the state. It cannot be the case.
But your bill said you would force them out of the country. But are you saying that's not true anymore?
So the point I'm making is this, that we put out amendments on Labour's bill, which is now at report stage in the Lodge. All of this has been superseded, saying we need to fix these things. We had parameters within the ECHR. That's why they had to be as tough as they were. Actually, leaving the ECHR means that we can soften them. But the bottom line is that we need to remove people from our country who are not supposed to be here. So many things have not changed. Deport all foreign criminals. That is still our policy. We need to make sure that we stop spending billions of pounds on foreign citizens.
But part of the bill said deport people who are earning a fraction less than £38,000. Is that still the policy?
So the policy is that if people are here who cannot contribute, then they need to leave.
So it is, we are talking hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, that may be the case, but that in and of itself is a scandal. How is it, as the Migration Observatory said, that so many people who have come to our country need benefits? That cannot be right. OK, well, I'm asking a slightly different question.
There was another implication of the bill which I wanted to check, is if you have lived and worked here and you retire and you're then getting the state pension, would those people, because on the basis of how you worded it, it actually says social protection is all that counts. The state pension is a form of social protection. Would those people be asked to leave?
But the principle is what we're talking about, people who have contributed. The state pension...
But many of those people will have contributed.
Yes, so that won't apply.
So you will, if you ever legislated, you would make that clear in the legislation?
Yes, so when you put down amendments, you don't go into as much detail, and quite a lot of things come out during the debates. So in the debates, we talked about the cohort we were referring to. Many of the people who came in since 2021, since we brought in the points-based immigration system, which I have acknowledged did not work as intended. In many ways, it actually failed. And what I want the Conservative Party to do now is be part of the solution. And what we have actually been able to do is drag Labour to where we are. Labour refused to talk about indefinite leave to remain and making changes to it. Now it is their policy. That's the work that we're doing in opposition, getting the government's policy to be in a better place, because we've got to lower immigration. It is far too high.
Now, you've spent a lot of time recently criticising the government for the collapse of the case against the alleged Chinese spies. Matt Collins, talking to MPs and Lords just this afternoon, said again that the case collapsed because of the policy of your government. That's why he could not call China an enemy or, in a general sense, a threat to the United Kingdom. And because he couldn't call them an enemy or a threat to the United Kingdom, the Director of Public Prosecutions made the decision to cancel the case.
But that's not quite what he said. And the Director of Public Prosecutions...
Well, it is quite what he said, because I watched him this afternoon.
If I may, the Director of Public Prosecutions said that the case collapsed because of current government policy. That's one. Two, he asked for evidence. The current government refused to give evidence. Those people were charged under Conservatives and let off under Labour. And finally, where we've seen the witness statement, which Matt Collins produced under this government, where the DPP, the Crown Prosecution Service, is asking for evidence, and what they put was how China was an opportunity. That's the opposite of the evidence they needed to prosecute.
But are you not at all embarrassed that the government of which you were part refused to call China an enemy?
These are diplomatic, bits of wording which we used publicly. Behind the scenes, I was in meetings, National Security Council meetings, where we could see the activity that China was carrying out. Why has this government not given them that information? I don't have access to it anymore. They have all of it, I know, I've seen some of it. They should put it out there. What is shocking is that they have refused to give the evidence because they are scared of China. They have a super embassy decision that's coming up. They're not quite sure what they want to do.
Would you cancel the super embassy?
There are so many things wrong with that planning.
Would you tell China they can't have the super embassy?
I think, given everything that we know, certainly, there's something going very, very wrong. It is quite clear that China is a threat. We have a case of alleged spies. We have lots of detail. The director of MI5 gave a speech just 10 or so days ago explaining that threat. And yet this government, led by a former DPP, was unable to make the case. That is a scandal. And there are still many more questions to answer, many more details to come out that will show just how weak this government has been.
Now, the FT has put out a story this afternoon saying that the Office for Budget Responsibility's productivity downgrade will be even bigger than people thought, 0.3 of a percentage point, which increases the Chancellor's black hole to more than £20 billion just from that productivity downgrade. Now, that is because of 14 years of low productivity while you were in power. So this is your black hole, isn't it?
No, it isn't. The Conservative Party is under new leadership. And what I've been saying is that the government needs to live within its means. What we're seeing now is government overspending, spending far too much, for instance, on welfare. We need to cut public spending on welfare, get people into work. If we get Britain working, many of these problems will be solved. Of course, we're unproductive when people aren't at work. And of course, we know...
Hang on, but sorry, just to address the point I'm making, which is productivity was wholly inadequate for all the years that your party was in power.
What is the driver of this issue? What is behind the productivity decreases? This is not a UK-specific problem. What we need to see now is how we solve it. Trying to put me on trial for decisions that were made by other people is not going to fix any of those. If I had a time machine, I would go back in time. I do not. All I can say is what we should do now. I'm the leader of the opposition for now, not for 5 years ago. And what I'm saying is we need to get people back to work.
Now, I know you were saying earlier that, you don't want to sort of focus all your time on the embarrassments in another party. But Nigel Farage has made a suggestion today that to speed up the Grooming Gangs Inquiry, it should transfer to Parliament. Is that the right decision?
I don't believe that is actually going to work. We have seen cases where evidence given in parliamentary select committees becomes inadmissible. They could prejudice a court case. And also, you can't discuss matters that are sub judice in Parliament. So from what I know, that is not a workable plan. What we need is a national inquiry. I've been calling for this since January. I had a press conference with 3 survivors. They've left. One of them has left the panel. The father of the other is talking about how his daughter's name is being used to claim that she wants Jess Phillips to stay when she does not. It's pretty shabby. We need to get justice for these women.
Nigel Farage did make a personal attack on you today, saying that when you were the Minister for Women, you never mentioned the grooming gang scandal. Do you want to reply to him?
Well, we had an inquiry going on. There was a lot of work being done. And actually, we had a grooming gangs task force that has found since 807 perpetrators. So I did my job when I was Minister for Women. I actually spent a lot of my time fighting for women's rights when we were having, serious issues about violation of single-sex spaces. I was the person who was intervening in Scotland when they were bringing in some terrible legislation. So I have a record that I'm proud of. But right now, we have seen the outcome of the last inquiry. It's insufficient. There's a task force that shows that there may even be cases taking place now. Still more girls being groomed and raped. We need to deal with that now. I'm not interested in Nigel Farage's personal insults. I'm interested in what we can do for a lot of these girls. They're sick and tired of politicians squabbling over things. They want justice, and that's what they deserve.
You and Labour humiliated in the Caerphilly by-election. You got 2%. It's as close to nil as makes no difference. That's embarrassing.
Well, given that we have never, ever done well in Caerphilly in 100 years,
2%.
even at our best, it is not a surprise that when we have just come out of a historic defeat, people will be looking elsewhere. What is shocking is that a seat that Labour has never, ever lost They came third in. People want to talk about the Conservatives. We already had our punishment at the last election. The government went in with 140-something majority. What are they doing with it? Absolutely nothing. They can't get any legislation through. They're upsetting everyone on left and right. The Prime Minister is weak. He's not showing any backbone. And they're going to continue like this unless they get their act together and start focusing on growing our economy.
Kemi Badenoch, as always, very good to see you.
Thank you, Robert.